It is the middle of a Roman campaign, the kind where the battlefield is still smoking and the winners are already walking the ground, picking through what is left. A Roman soldier reaches down and grabs a weapon that is not Roman. Different balance, different grip, different steel, and for a second he is not thinking about glory. He is thinking about an upgrade. Because here is the part they do not put on the marble columns. Rome did not become unstoppable by inventing everything first. It became unstoppable by watching other people fight, spotting what worked, and then taking it. Not just taking land, taking ideas, taking equipment, taking the enemy's best solutions and turning them into Roman doctrine. And once Rome had the blueprint, it had something even deadlier than any blade. A machine that could take a borrowed idea and turn it into standard issue, from one end of the empire to the other. So if you are into the hidden mechanics behind Rome's victories, the stuff that never makes it into the heroic speeches, you are in the right place. Oh, and do not forget to subscribe, but only if you like this video and you want to see more of this. Have you ever copied something from a rival because it was simply better than what you had? Let us get into it. The Roman superpower was stealing solutions. Most empires fall in love with their own traditions. They carve their weapons into monuments. They tell their children that grandfather's sword was good enough, so it is good enough for you. Rome did not think like that. Rome thought like a fighter who just got hit in the face and wants to know what punch that was. Picture it. 3rd century BC. Roman legions are clashing with Gauls for the first time in serious combat. These are not small skirmishes. These are massive, terrifying engagements against warriors who stand a full head taller than most Romans, swinging swords that are longer than anything the legions ever faced. The Gallic blade is built for slashing. Wide arcs, brutal cuts. It catches Roman shields at angles they were never designed to handle. And the Romans? They take notes. Within a generation, Roman swords start getting longer, not identical to the Gallic design, but influenced, adjusted, Romanized. This was not a one-time thing, this was the system. When Rome encountered the Samnites in the rugged hills of central Italy, they noticed something else. The Samnite shield was not round like the old Etruscan model Rome had been using. It was elongated, curved, built to protect a soldier from shoulder to knee while still letting him move through rough terrain. Rome did not dismiss it. Rome adopted it, and here is where Rome separated itself from everyone else. Other cultures borrowed weapons too. That is nothing special. But Rome did not just borrow. Rome processed. Every captured idea went through a kind of military filter. Does it fit our formations? Can we train 10,000 men to use it? Can we manufacture it across 3 continents? If the answer was no, Roman engineers made it yes. That was the real power, not the weapons themselves, the system behind them. But systems need the right tools. And Rome was about to find the perfect one in the hands of an enemy. The sword swap that changed everything. Here is something they do not teach you in the history books. Rome changed its primary sidearm at least 3 times. Not because Romans got bored, because the enemy changed, and when the enemy changed, the sword had to change with it. During the Punic Wars, Rome encountered Spanish warriors carrying a short, pointed blade designed for stabbing, not slashing, brutal in close quarters, absolutely devastating when paired with a disciplined formation that could get inside an enemy's reach. Rome watched them use it. Then Rome took it. Then Rome made it standard issue for every legionary across the known world. The gladius. Picture the classic Roman battle. 2 armies smash into each other. Shields lock. The fighting compresses into a brutal, sweaty, chest-to-chest grind where you can smell what your enemy ate for breakfast. In that chaos, a long sword is a liability. You cannot swing it. You cannot slash. There is no room. But a short stabbing sword, that is a different story. 18 to 24 inches of pointed steel that could punch through gaps in armor, find the space between shield and shoulder, and end a fight before the other man knew he was dead. For centuries, this combination dominated every battlefield Rome touched. But then something shifted. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, Rome was no longer fighting massive infantry armies in set-piece battles. The frontiers had changed. The enemies had changed. Mounted raiders, Germanic cavalry, open terrain where tight formations were not always possible. Suddenly, reach mattered. Enter the spatha. Longer. Anywhere from 30 to 40 inches. Originally a cavalry weapon borrowed from Celtic designs centuries earlier. But as warfare evolved, the spatha started appearing in the hands of infantry too. This was not a downgrade. It was an adaptation. The Strobing Nidam type was long and narrow, built for reach and speed. The Lauriacum Hromafka type was wider and heavier, designed to deliver more devastating cuts. Different tools for different problems, and here is what made Rome dangerous. It did not cling to the gladius out of tradition. It recognized that a sword is not a symbol, it is a solution. And when the problem changes, the solution has to change with it. But killing is only half of warfare. The other half, not dying, armor and the shock of surviving a hit. Rome understood survival better than anyone. Picture a soldier in the early Roman army. He has a bronze breastplate if he is lucky, maybe a simple helmet made from leather and fur. The kind of thing that started as a hunter's cap and got pressed into military service because it was better than nothing. Now picture that same soldier watching an enemy warrior take a hit that should have killed him. The blade connects. The sound is wrong, metal on metal, but the warrior keeps moving, keeps fighting. That warrior is wearing chainmail. The Romans called it lorica hamata, but they did not invent it. The Gauls were the first to hammer out those interlocking iron rings, link by link, thousands of them, creating a flexible mesh that could absorb and distribute the force of a blow across the entire torso. Rome did not care who invented it. Rome cared that it worked. Within generations, chainmail became standard equipment, not because it was Roman, because it kept soldiers alive long enough to win. And here is where Rome's system made the difference. A Gallic smith might produce a few suits for his chieftain and his best warriors. Elite equipment for elite fighters. Rome asked a different question. Can we make 10,000 of these? Can we equip entire legions? Can we standardize the rings, the patterns, the weight, so that any soldier in any province can repair his armor with parts from any workshop in the empire? The answer was yes. The original inventor became irrelevant. What mattered was scale. And protection changed everything about how Rome fought. A soldier who knows he can survive a glancing blow fights differently than one who knows any hit might be his last. He stays in formation longer. He takes calculated risks. He trusts the man next to him because they are all wearing the same armor, fighting with the same doctrine. Rome did not build an army from scratch. Rome assembled an army from the best pieces of everyone it fought. But before the swords clashed and the armor was tested, something else had to happen. Something that turned organized enemies into chaos. The pillum problem. Now let us talk about the weapon that ruined more battle plans than any sword ever could. The pillum. On the surface it looks simple. A wooden shaft. A long, iron shank. A pointed tip. Just a spear you throw before the real fighting starts. But that description misses everything that made the pillum terrifying. Picture an enemy formation. Shields locked, warriors braced. They have trained for this moment. They know the Romans are coming, and they are ready to absorb the charge. Then the sky goes dark. Hundreds of pila arc through the air and come down at a steep angle, not flat like arrows, not skimming across the top of shields. Down, through the gap between shield rim and helmet, into the shields themselves. And here is where the engineering gets nasty. The pillum was not designed to kill on impact. It was designed to stick. That long iron shank, nearly 3 feet of thin metal, was built to punch through a wooden shield and keep going until the heavy wooden shaft was resting against the front. Now the enemy warrior has a problem. He cannot pull it out. The barbed tip is buried too deep. He cannot cut the shaft off. There is no time. He cannot raise his shield properly because there is a Roman javelin hanging off it, throwing off the balance, dragging the whole thing down. His shield just became dead weight, and the Romans are already closing the distance. This is what made the pillum a formation killer. It did not need to draw blood. It needed to create chaos. Turn a disciplined shield wall into a scrambling mess of soldiers trying to fix equipment they cannot fix in time. But Rome did not stop there. Marius, the great Roman general, introduced a modification. One of the two iron pins holding the shank to the shaft was replaced with a wooden pin. Same design, same throw. But now when the pillum hit a shield, the wooden pin snapped from the impact. The shank bent. The weapon became completely useless. Why would Rome deliberately weaken its own weapon? Because enemies were throwing them back. A straight pillum that missed could be picked up and returned with Roman compliments. A bent pillum was garbage. One-time use. Problem solved. Caesar took it further. He used soft iron for the shank so it would bend on impact without needing the wooden pin trick. Same principle. Constant improvement. Disrupt. Then stab. That was Roman timing. But here is the question no one asks. How do you make thousands of iron shanks that bend the right way? How do you forge steel edges that hold up in combat? The answer takes us underground, into the furnaces. The real theft was the metal system behind the gear. Here is the part that most people miss. Copying a sword shape is easy. Any blacksmith with a hammer and a reference can get the outline right. But copying the material science? That is where empires are built or broken. And Roman metallurgy was far more sophisticated than the movies suggest. Let us start with a dirty secret. Roman iron was inconsistent. The bloomery furnace, the standard iron production method of the ancient world, could not fully melt iron ore. The temperatures reached around 1300 degrees Celsius, which is the equivalent of roughly 2400 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot enough to reduce the ore, not hot enough to liquefy it. What came out was called a bloom, a spongy mass of metal mixed with slag, charcoal fragments, and impurities from the furnace walls. The carbon content varied wildly. Some parts might be soft wrought iron, other parts might be high carbon steel. Some sections might be completely useless. This was not a flaw Roman smiths ignored. It was a challenge they mastered. The bloom would be broken apart, sometimes by quenching it in water to create thermal shock. Then the real work began. Smiths learned to sort the fragments by sound, by colour, by how they responded to heat. Selection became an art form. Once the right pieces were chosen, they could be fire-welded together at extreme temperatures, layer by layer, fold by fold, creating composite blades where hard steel formed the cutting edge and softer iron formed the body. This was not accidental. This was deliberate engineering. A gladius recovered from the Thames showed exactly this construction. High carbon steel at the edges quenched to martensite for hardness. Softer metal at the core for flexibility. A blade that could hold an edge sharp enough to slice through armor and absorb impact without shattering. And here is where Roman scale changed everything. Once a technique worked, it could be documented, taught, replicated in military workshops from Britain to Syria. The same composite construction, the same heat treatment, the same quality standards across 10,000 blades. But Rome did not have a monopoly on metallurgical brilliance. Near the Rhine frontier, archaeologists found something unexpected. A Germanic punch made from ultra-high carbon steel. Not Roman, not primitive, terrifyingly advanced, but one master smith making one perfect blade does not win wars. Rome needed thousands of blades, tens of thousands, all meeting the same standard, and that required something beyond metallurgy. The machine that spread the blueprint. The part that turned stolen ideas into world domination. The fabricae, Rome's state-run weapons factories. These were not small village forges where a single smith hammered out horseshoes between farming seasons. These were military factories. State-run operations dedicated to one purpose, producing weapons and armor at a scale no other civilization could match. By the late Empire, fabricae were spread across every major region, 15 in the east, another 20 in the west, each one specializing in specific equipment. One produced swords, another produced shields, another focused entirely on arrows. It was an assembly line centuries before the Industrial Revolution, and here is what made it terrifying. A legionary stationed in Britain carried the same sword as one stationed in Syria, the same weight, the same balance, the same edge geometry. If his blade broke, he could replace it with one from a completely different workshop 3,000 miles away, and it would feel identical in his hand. That is not craftsmanship, that is standardization. The techniques that worked got documented. The heat treatment that produced the hardest edges got taught to every smith in the system. The composite construction that balanced hardness and flexibility became doctrine, not just tradition. Once Rome figured out how to make a gladius that could punch through Gallic mail, every fabricae in the empire learned the method. Once Rome perfected a pillum shank that bent on impact, the formula spread from Spain to the Danube. This is why the original inventors stopped mattering. A Spanish smith might have created the first gladius, but within a generation, Roman fabricae were producing more of them than Spain ever could. A Gallic armourer might have perfected chainmail, but Rome turned his masterpiece into a logistics problem and then solved it. The Colosseum alone required an estimated 300 tons of iron just for construction clamps. A single legion needed 38 tons of iron to equip. Multiply that across 30 legions, plus auxiliaries, plus replacement gear, plus siege equipment. Rome was not just fighting wars. Rome was running a manufacturing empire that happened to have an army attached, and the bureaucracy kept it fed. Iron bars have been found in Roman shipwrecks, standardized in size and composition, grouped by quality. High-carbon steel separated from low-carbon iron. Phosphoric iron kept apart from the rest. Each type destined for a specific purpose. The barbarians had brilliant smiths. They had techniques Rome never fully mastered. But they did not have fabricae in 15 provinces. They did not have standardized iron bars crossing the Mediterranean on cargo ships. They did not have the organizational machinery to turn one good idea into a million identical copies. Rome did, and that made all the difference. Rome's victories were not only about discipline and marching, they were about attention. Rome paid attention to what hurt it. Then it paid attention to what protected it. Then it took both, improved both, and mass-produced both until the original inventors became footnotes. None of it was Roman at the start. All of it became Roman by the end. That is why Roman gear feels inevitable in hindsight. It was not inevitable. It was selected, tested, refined, scaled across 3 continents by an empire that treated innovation like plunder. The real Roman superweapon was never a blade or a breastplate. It was a system that watched, copied, and manufactured better than anyone else on Earth. And the next time you see a legionary on screen holding a Roman weapon, remember this. Somewhere in that design is an enemy's idea, stolen on purpose and turned into empire. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.